buy into his $20,000 program so he can teach you real estate. That type of stuff. All right, he may be successful at it, but I don't know if I'd take advice from that guy. But somebody who would be willing to go out to lunch with you and say, here's some things you could look at, and I'm not looking to get anything out of you, and here's my advice and what I would do. That's somebody who's interested in advice you should take to heart, because they're not trying to sell you a product, get anything out of you, get you into the system, whatever. And those are the people that, they're very knowledgeable, they're very helpful. People that are out there that are willing to help. If you take that advice and listen, and then you'll be better off for it.
Hello, and welcome to the Millennial Mastermind Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Mulvey. If you're a millennial looking for actionable advice and a proven formula on how to build the life of your dreams, then this is the show for you. Each week, I'll be connecting with inspiring guests who will be sharing their wisdom on how to reach success. So if you're ready to take your life to the next level, buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hey guys, welcome to the show. Today's guest is Scott Alan Turner. Scott is known as the financial rockstar, and he went from being a quote-unquote money moron, as he puts it, at age 22 to a self-made millionaire by age 35. Scott now spends his time helping people get out of debt faster, save more money, and retire rich. He is the radio and podcast host of the Scott Alan Turner Show and the best-selling author of the Minute Millionaire. In today's episode, Scott shares how he dug himself out of that financial hole and created enough wealth for himself to be able to retire by 35. We explore how he overcame every hurdle and mistake that he made along the way, such as the time that he lost $40,000 when he first started investing. Scott also shares how aspiring entrepreneurs should be thinking about their personal finances based on his own experience of starting a business in his 20s. My biggest takeaway from this episode is that there are a lot of people out there giving financial advice, but it's not always good advice. So even in this episode, just be careful who you listen to and make sure that you're doing your own research before going all in on any investment or wealth building strategy. But I hope you guys find this episode extremely helpful as a tool for you to help get your finances right. So with that, let's just dive right into the episode with Scott Alan Turner. Enjoy. Welcome, folks, to another episode of the Millennial Mastermind Podcast. Today, I am joined by Scott Alan Turner. Scott, how are you doing today?
Wicked awesome, Brad. Thanks for having me on.
Love it, love it. And I'm really thrilled to jump into your story here because you have gone from being in your own words, money moron at age 22 to a self-made millionaire just over a decade later. You're now retired and helping other folks learn how to manage their money is your passion, and you are now known as the financial rock star. You have authored a best-selling book called Minute Millionaire, and you're the host of the Scott Alan Turner Show. So I can't wait to dive into how you turned around your financial situation and some of the tips that our listeners and myself can take away from what you learned over those 13 years going from broke to a self-made millionaire. So to kick things off, would you mind just talking us through that story briefly of how you went from, that point when you were really at a financial low at age 22 to having so much success just over 10 years later?
Yeah, when I got out of college, I was living the paycheck-to-paycheck lifestyle, which I think most people can relate to. Yep. I didn't know I was living the paycheck-to-paycheck lifestyle. To me, that was just normal, spending all my money as it came in on groceries and nice apartments later on and nice cars. I didn't get a great financial education growing up, which is kind of typical in our society. We don't learn it in school. We don't necessarily learn it from my parents. My parents taught me to save, and that was about it. They never owned a home, never Borrowed money for cars, never had credit cards, didn't have a 401k. My dad had a pension. He was a blue-collar worker. So save was about the best lesson I got. And then coming out of college, I had student loans, got into some credit card debt, bought a really, really nice new vehicle after I had been at work for about 9 months because I, of course, deserved it. And then bought an even nicer vehicle a short period after that because it came available. Ended up with an $800 a month car payment. About the same time, my boss said, you should buy as much house as the bank will let you. And I just about did that. I went out and I was single at the time, bought a really, really nice home. After moving in, closing costs, found myself with really big car payment, really big mortgage, single dude, no savings, empty bank account. It's like, oh, this is not a good place to be. So that was my financial awakening moment. That was about age 25. And from there, I made the bold decision, I got to get rid of this car because I'm not feeling good about life, even though my job was kind of secure. I was in IT. Sold that car, paid cash for kind of like a junky truck. It was about $6,500, had 35,000 miles on it, drove that for a number of years. And that was really the point in my life where I started accumulating wealth and stopped consuming so much. And from there, I moved up the corporate ladder, got raises, moved on to a different job at a startup company. Same thing. Just, took a pay cut to work there, but worked my way back up to where I was earning income before. Got into the entrepreneurial spirit, started a business, got married as well, so that helped, having additional income there. And then, at age 35, I had achieved financial independence. And I've been debt-free since 2009, so it's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome, and I think that journey will inspire a lot of folks who are listening because there are a lot of entrepreneurial-minded listeners of this show and people who know that that's in the cards for them at some point in the road. But in the meantime, they're still trying to figure out the finance side of things and how to get where they want to be as quickly as they can.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I would love to get your thoughts on, especially for millennials, people in their mid to upper 20s, what should they be doing now to work towards that path of financial freedom?
I think the biggest thing for me, and when I'm encouraging people on my show as well, is the automobile. I know we love cars. I love cars. They're an extension of ourselves. But if you can get rid of a $400 to $500 a month car payment by not going out and doing what I did, buy the $30,000 new vehicle, which is the average price of a car right now. Most people finance $29,000 of that. If you can just buy a used piece of junk, to put it nicely, a piece of car, and then drive that for a long period of time. The car I'm driving now I bought in 2007, and it's just coming up on 120,000 miles, and I haven't had a car payment in 10 years. And when you think about that, all that money, I've done the math on my own new vehicles. If I had skipped the ones that I got in between my college car and then this truck, I'd have another $1 million at about age 65 and 70 when you factor in all the depreciation, the insurance costs, the interest payments, that over a 40-year span, those car payments, if I had never bought those two vehicles, worth an extra $1 million. And I can't get that back. I'll never get that back. It's crazy how compounding money works over time.
Yeah, and I think that would be a great thing to talk about real briefly for anybody who doesn't have a understanding of the compound effect on money. Could you talk just through how important it is to start saving and investing early on?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't get it at first either. When my college professor said, when you get out of school, this is my senior year in college, you should, I forget his numbers, but he said, give away 10% of your money and save 10% for retirement. Those were his words. And I laughed at him. I said, I didn't call him an idiot, but I was thinking he was an idiot. I thought, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm just going to save 20% of my income when I'm age 40, right? I mean, that makes sense. Where I don't have to start at 10%. I'll just wait 20 years and then save 20%. I knew nothing about compound interest. That's not how it works. So some people have probably seen these strange charts when people say, Sally starts saving $100 a month at age 20. She stops at age 30, and then Bill starts at age 40, and he saves $1,000 a month for the next 20 years, and Sally ends up saving more, something like that. But that's the power of compound interest. It's when your money makes you more money, and the earlier you start, the longer it grows, the less that you have to save, and the more you end up with in the long run.
Yeah, and I think one of the one of the intimidating parts of this whole financial aspect is getting started with investing. And I'm sure that one easy way to do it is to start putting money into a 401k and then let that money grow on its own and be set aside. But I would love to get your perspective, because this is something I always find myself thinking about, is when I'm putting money into a 401k and into a mutual fund or something that's predetermined or pre-selected or pre-recommended by the company that I'm working for, I don't feel like I really have a knowledge of where that's going or control over that money. So would you recommend, do you recommend people go the 401k route? As you were kind of coming into your financial awakening, what was your strategy for learning investing and understanding what made sense for you?
Well, when I got started investing and learning about it, I lost $40,000 in the stock market because I thought I was following some good advice and from some smart people. I had read some books like, oh, this is how you invest. Then after I lost all that money, I got my awakening to, no, that's not the right way to invest. That's not the safe way to invest and accumulate wealth over a long period of time. The book that I wrote, 99-Minute Millionaire, is how to get started investing simply. And I wrote that book because the question I kept getting over and over again on my show is, how do I get started investing? And it's really made out to be complex. To answer your question, yeah, if you've got access to a 401k, when I got started, we did not have a 401k at the company. It was a smaller company, and that's kind of common at smaller companies because 401ks, they cost a lot of money to administrate. So some companies, they don't spend that money on their employees. So I lobbied for a long, long time, saying, when are we going to get a 401k? When are we going to get a 401k? We finally got one. Nowadays, you have very simple investments within them. They're called target date funds. And I'll just say, for people who are a little bit more experienced with investing, they know how this stuff works. They'll say, no, target date funds are terrible. There's a lot of bad 401ks out there, but when you're getting started, you pick something that says, I want to retire in 2045, the year 2045. That's called a target date fund. You have a specific date that you're shooting for. You throw your money in that, and then that's all you got to do. They take care of everything else. You wait till you get to 2045 and boom, you're done. Now, they're not perfect. They're not the best, but saving and getting started are the two most important things. So if you can get started in something like that, then you learn about the ins and outs of it later on as you progress.
So how about from the perspective of somebody who is considering starting a business in the next few years? Because there's a lot of differing advice on this, depending on which entrepreneur you're listening to, or what professional or who you're talking to. Some people say, yeah, keep pouring money into a 401k retirement fund, things like that while you're working. Others say investing in yourself and your business is going to have the highest possible return. So rather than focusing that saving on a retirement fund, focus on putting on towards a future business or towards a business that you're starting now. Do you have a perspective or an opinion on that?
I do, and as soon as you started getting in, I knew exactly where you're going. If you talk to a real estate guru, they're going to tell you, don't invest in anything. You should put 100% of your money in real estate. And if you talk to somebody who's gone bankrupt doing real estate deals, they'll say, no, don't do any money in real estate. Go invest in something like gold or whatever. So my philosophy is diversification. Have multiple streams of savings and investments so that you can have multiple streams of income and places that you can pull that money out later on. In my own life, yeah, we've got money in real estate. We've got money in investments. And then we also invest money in ourselves and in the businesses that we've started. So for somebody who's just getting started out, maybe you're coming out of college, get the company match in the 401k, whatever that is, 3-4%. And then after that, at least you've got something going in there. And then take your extra money, go get more training, get more education, get another degree, go take some courses somewhere, or funnel that money into a business that you want to start. The best time to start a business is when you don't have a family, when you don't have kids, when you're single, when you can face plant early on and you haven't blown up the next years of your life and you can recover. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's 5 years away from hitting retirement age, 65, that's not in the cards. It's a terrible idea. So you have to be much more conservative. So take all the risks that you possibly can when you're younger, but let that money, just a little bit, not be all of it, get the company match, and again, let that money compound over the next 40 or 50 years, so you have even more later on. So I'm a diversification, healthy balance. Let's do a little bit of everything because that's safer.
That makes sense. And I just on the topic of diversification, because this seems to be another financial topic that you see sprouting up on every podcast, every blog, is the area of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. Is that anything that you've dabbled with or experienced in recent times?
It is not. I've done the research on it, and here's why I don't. I mentioned before I lost $40,000 in the stock market early on. That's when I was trying to pick stocks. Now I'm more of a diversified. Let's invest in a lot of index funds. They're called, to the technical term, a lot of different types of funds. So buy a little of everything. But when I lost all that money, I had lost money doing day trading, picking individual stocks. What else? Commodities trading. Penny stocks. So if there was a way to lose money investing, I have probably done it. So I learned that and I went through that. I'll use a perfect example is Snapchat is a product that a lot of people are familiar with. And they had an IPO earlier this year. And everyone was thinking, Snapchat, they're the next Facebook. They're the next Twitter. And the stock took off like a rocket for the first week. And then it's just been tanking ever since. And I think it's funny. I follow it because I know I used to be that guy. I would have got on Snapchat, watch it go up, and then you lose half your money. And I see cryptocurrencies, it's the same thing is going to happen. There's a lot of hype. There's not a lot of history behind it. But you've got everybody and their brother making tons of money. And it seems like a great thing, but until it's not. So it'll phase plant at some point.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate hearing that different perspective than what you hear, especially when you're listening to a lot of influencers who are very gung-ho in the tech industry as a whole. They are very excited about the opportunity of this new currency and this new financial institution that is off the grid and more of a tech space than a government space. So it's great to hear the other side of that coin as well.
Yeah, I knew it was a bunch of hype when I saw Paris Hilton tweet about how she's getting in on one of the new cryptocurrency launches, and she's like, #blockchain. It's like, oh, well, if Paris is getting in on it, well, it must be legit.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically where I go for my financial advice is Paris Hilton, but yeah, maybe on this one, we'll wait and see. So you mentioned that a car is one area where some young people might be able to save some money and be able to cut back from their expenses. Are there any other areas that you think are obvious or glaring issues especially with young people when it comes to finances?
Yeah, the big three. There's four, but health insurance we don't have a whole lot of control over and very limited choices. So that's a huge expense, but there's not much you can do about it. You can either pay or don't. There's not a big market for it, but we've got transportation. Unless you're living in a city, commuting, going on the train, there's not much you can do about that. But if you own a car, housing is the second one. When I was single, I had a really awesome, expensive apartment, more wasted money. I had a roommate the first year out of college, and then I lived on my own for a number of years. So that was really expensive rent. So that's a place where you can look at, do I want to live in a cheaper apartment? Do I want to get a roommate? Do I want to get a group of guys or girls together and go rent out a house somewhere, which can be cheaper? So that can reduce your cost of living. And the third one is eating and entertainment, because that's really discretionary income. Am I going to go out to eat 5 days a week, which is really, really expensive? Or am I going to go out to eat 2 days a week? And the type of food that you cook on your own or don't cook, groceries are a big one. And you can save without any real loss of quality of life. I'll say a significant amount of money just paying attention to where your money is going. And am I buying name brand Cheerios or am I buying Toasty Oats, which are definitely not as good? I mean, if I'm buying Cheerios, I'm buying name brand Cheerios, but there's some generics that are equivalent to the name brand stuff where you can save money.
Sure.
Or when you're going out to eat, I wrote an article on my website. It's like 32 ways to save money when you're going out to eat. Just simple things. Eat something beforehand so you're not dropping $15 on an appetizer, or Desserts are my favorite because I'm a sugar fiend, but I've learned that, $4 for a Ben and Jerry's pint of ice cream on my way home is actually better tasting than a $10 piece of cake that is just really not as good. So
Right.
simple things like that add up over time. It gets back to that compounding. You do enough of that over the course of a year, you can have a couple extra grand in quick savings.
Yeah, and so that would definitely be taking a look at the defensive side of the wealth management and wealth building, and where the offensive side would be increasing your income. And so I know you mentioned that you ultimately did increase your income, but at one point you took a pretty significant pay cut to go join that startup company. What was being the fact that you were so financially mindful during this phase of your life? I would love to get your perspective on why you took a pay cut and why you saw that as an opportunity to advance.
There's some financial opportunities there. I was at a startup company which got bought out by a corporate company, so the environment had changed quite a bit. I was kind of bored at my job, and working for a startup company appealed to me as well because that's where I had come from prior to that buyout. And for me, I went to work for them, and I'm probably the dumbest person in the world. I think I'm the only person in the history of salary negotiation who negotiated a lower salary. And that's because I wanted the stock options.
Sure.
And again, being single, I had opportunity to take on more risk. I didn't have a lot of responsibility. So I went into the interviews that they offered me X dollars. I said, well, can I get less than that, but have more stock options? Oh, yeah, sure. And so that buy-in to the company, they appreciated that. And really, it allowed me to increase my income even more than my prior job because of going to work early, staying late, working hard on the job, and they recognized that, and I was rewarded for that. So I made back the pay cut pretty significantly. I want to say within probably 18 months of starting that job.
So then when you moved on to the next chapter of starting your own business, what financial decisions go into that? I don't know the order of when you got married and started your family, but when you're thinking about starting your own business, where was your head at in terms of the finances?
The big thing for me, and what I suggest others look at too, is having a fallback. And that's as simple as having an emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months of living expenses for your base necessities. That doesn't include, because if you want to cover for the following things. One, your company does not do well and doesn't make money, so you got to pay your bills somehow. Two, you can't work. You come down with a medical condition or you're physically unable to do your job. So that's something that you want to watch out for. And if you get let go, if you're in the corporate world. So having an emergency fund takes care of those things. For me, I had 6 months of cash in the bank, knowing, all right, I'm leaving my corporate job. I'm going out on my own. Worst case scenario, I got 6 months to figure it out. If I don't make $1 starting tomorrow, I've got this covered. I can make my mortgage, my car insurance payments. I can eat and get by. And then I was in a house at a time. What's the worst going to happen? All right, I can unload this house in 6 months. That's plenty of time. In my head, it was plenty of time if the worst case happens. And move back home with mom and dad, I guess, would be my fallback. The worst case scenario. But that cash cushion really allows people to sleep well at night. And you don't stress out. All right, you don't have a good sales day you thought, or you didn't make as much money as you thought in your business or as quickly as you want. You've got that backup reserve, and it makes you make better decisions because you're not making decisions on, wow, the rent is due tomorrow. What am I going to sell? Am I going to have a fire sale at the company? Can I sell the company desk? You're having a freak out going on, but that cash keeps you in a good place.
And when you when you made that transition, did you just kind of jump ship and take the leap of faith and quit your job and then go out and start a company, or had you begun the process of starting a company prior to leaving your actual job?
Yeah, the first time around, I had been working on my company for 3 years, and up until that point, I had not made $1 from it. So that's some of the sacrifice that went into it, which allowed me to get to where I was today. I had a couple business partners, and we had a plan where as the company makes money, we're each going to peel off from our corporate job. And the first guy left his corporate job. The second guy left his. I was number 3 to go. So those guys are already getting paid. And for me, it was like, hey, do we have enough money to pay me? Because I'm ready to like get out of the corporate land and go do this. And the answer was yes, we have enough. I asked this specific question. I asked is, do we have enough to pay my mortgage, my basic necessities? We came up with a dollar amount. That's where that 65% pay cut comes from. The answer was yes. All right. And I resigned a week or two later.
That's awesome. So and I think that's a key point to really call out, is that you didn't just jump out of your position with no plan, no business, no real strategies to how you were going to substitute that income. So I think that's really the smarter, and as you mentioned earlier, you've always been focused on the safe approach. I think that that's the way to go about doing that. So with all that you've learned, especially over that 13-year period when you went from a place of really living paycheck to paycheck to where you were able to retire as a self-made millionaire and really choose what you were going to do next, is there one piece of advice that stands out that you would have given to yourself at age 22 before you started that journey of achieving financial freedom?
I think the biggest one is when someone who is smarter, older, has more money than you and more successful, when they give you good advice, take it and listen. I mentioned that story about my college professor. He gave me good advice and I ignored it, went out and spent all my money. And then there were other times as well early on. You really got to, success leaves clues. So if you go out and find somebody who's legit, they're not trying to sell you on stuff. It's not the real estate guy who's got 100 properties and he wants you to buy into his $20,000 program so he can teach you real estate. That type of stuff. All right, he may be successful at it, but I don't know if I'd take advice from that guy. But somebody who would be willing to go out to lunch with you and say, here's some things you could look at, and I'm not looking to get anything out of you, and here's my advice and what I would do. That's somebody who's interested in advice you should take to heart, because they're not trying to sell you a product, get anything out of you, get you into the system, whatever. And those are the people that, they're very knowledgeable, they're very helpful. People that are out there that are willing to help. If you take that advice and listen, and then you'll be better off for it.
Very nice. So Scott, if people want to learn more about you, they want to check out the Scott Alan Turner Show, where can they find out more information on the interweb?
Sure. My website is scottallan, ALAN, Turner.com. It's got my contact information, and I'd love to hear from people and help them out. It's kind of like what I do for my next part of my life. I got into personal finance a couple years ago, and I love helping people out with businesses and personal finances, and I get a great joy out of that.
I love that, and we appreciate your generosity with your time and with your knowledge. Is there anything else that you would love to leave as parting wisdom for the audience?
Yeah, I'd just like to remind everyone that you can get rich slowly and you can achieve anything you want in your life. There's people who have done what you're trying to get to. They didn't do it overnight. They don't do it quickly, and we're all have a level playing field on the inside. We've all got the same guts, we'll say. Nobody's got special talents out there. I know I don't. I just found people that were smarter than me and kind of duplicated what they did. So anybody can do it.
Yeah, I think that that's important to keep in mind, especially the patience piece, because a lot of us are young go-hards trying to get to that level of success as quickly as we can, but we have to remember it doesn't always happen overnight, but work hard and keep at it, and before you know it, that dream will be actualized. So Scott, thanks so much for joining us today. This was a really fun conversation. Wish you the best, and can't wait to tune in to the Scott Alan Turner Show to learn more.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate it.